Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash that subscribe button, turn your notification so you are notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I am saying a very big shout out to every one of you for all the love and support you all showering me here with. I am grateful, and you all are super sweet. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about what I saw about African American and saying something about Africans and Caribbeans, like the people that will like come fight for them if there is anything going on. And I think a lot of things like it's going wrong, and I think it's time we try as much as we can to fix it as people, because they actually know the power we hold together if we decide to come together and I mean fight what is fighting us, because it is not just only African Americans. Some certain things are also affecting Africans, but the media already projected some lies to you and us, and that alone was just there was a lot of bridge of gap between both of us. And also I want some Africans to like really give that accolades and kudos to African Americans for all their fought, what their ancestors went through. The reality is that some of you all think that we made when we are in America and all that. I want you to remember that some people were the ones that paved way for you. And at the same time, I want African Americans to take it easy. You know, it's a whole lot of trauma. It's a whole lot of things to unpack and all that. Being the fact that so many things has been said and all that, I think, we all can come together and make things work. It's just going to be two-sided thing, like both parties coming together and understanding that, man, this has happened, but then we have to squash all this together and come together, because as it stands, I am rooting for you people. A lot of also Africans are also rooting for you. Number one is that some people actually do not know the history, but when you do not understand the history, you can deviate without even understanding the problem, what caused this and what caused that. But I am happy that I have been able to understand more what happened and what is still happening in Black community. I am just going to roll this clip. We'll come back to talk about it. I absolutely want to read all your comments. Let me know what you all think in the comments section. So straight up, let's get in.
What other race/ethnicities do you believe would be there to help Black people in a race war?
Black American people, because the Caribbeans and the Africans, I don't see them standing up with us either.
Excuse the f out of me.
The diaspora wars are already going crazy.
Whoa.
It's mad Caribbeans and African people that think that they better than Black Americans as it is. So when people from other countries come here, they are already forewarned. Stay away from them Black Americans. They're like this. They're like that. There are a lot that will stand up with us, but I'm not counting every single last one.
So what you're saying is there are going to be a group of West Indians who are going to look at a race war and say, I'm from Trinidad. I don't know what's going on up here. But I'm from Trinidad. I know what's going on in Alabama and all them type of thing. Them fellas down there, that's good. I go on right out soldier.
No Black person from Africa or the Caribbean, you don't see them on this app advocating, saying that they hate you people. It is you people who keep saying that we lot don't like you and that we lot think we're better than you.
This creator does a lot of stitching, so you'll have to go back and watch their video. But what they're responding to is this idea that other members of the diaspora and Africa have an animosity towards Black Americans. But this creator is arguing that that's not the case at all. The creator says more in their video, but one of the main points that they are trying to bring home is that this whole diaspora war is like all made up in the heads of Black Americans, and Caribbean people and African people don't like hate them. They don't say anything bad about them, blah, 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 blah. I'm a first generation American. My family's from Trinidad, and I'm about to snitch on y'all. I grew up with a lot of people who are also first gens who would constantly hear from their family about how, oh, the Black Americans are this, the Black Americans are that, don't act like them, da 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 da. And let's not forget the I'm not Black, I'm insert nationality here. People constantly assume I'm a Black American. So a lot of people of African descent and Caribbean descent are in my comments saying things like, well, Black Americans are entitled, they're lazy, they're this, like, look at me, I'm from Africa and now I have a PhD and they can do so much better than they're doing, da 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 da. Constantly dragging Black Americans as if they want to completely ignore the history of Black Americans in this country and ignore the fact that because Black Americans fought so hard, because Black Americans were tortured, they were beaten, they were treated horribly, because of how hard Black Americans fought, they can come to this country and have all of these different luxuries and become doctors, have that PhD and all of those things, while a lot of the Black Americans who were raised here generation after generation are stuck in a lot of cycles of poverty and certain situations because of all the systemic racism that takes place in this country. Look, now obviously at the root of all this is white supremacy and this desire for people to separate themselves from Blackness, separate themselves from what they consider to be the worst types of Black. Like, that's why some people might say, oh, I'm not Black, I'm Jamaican, because they would want people to associate them with Black Americanness. But this happens all over the diaspora and in Africa. But the components of this perceived diaspora war is not just some sort of figment of the imagination of Black Americans. It shouldn't exist, but it does.
Black American people, because the Caribbeans and the Africans, I don't see them standing up with us either.
Quick recap, the question was, if there was a race war in America, who do we think would stand up for Black Americans? One of the creators said, hands down, she believes that Africans and Caribbeans would not be there to stand up and help fight, but probably more Black Americans would be able to help in this race war. And it's sad, but I agree. I do agree. If you watch the video, she went on to explain about the us and them mentality and the diaspora wars that happen and how some Caribbean and African people feel that they are better than Black Americans. This is a really tough conversation even for me to have. I am a Black woman, but I am also Zambian, so I'm an African woman who lived part of my life in Africa and part of my life in the U.S. Majority of my life was in the U.S., so in some ways, yeah, Black culture has influenced my life in numerous ways, right? But I also do agree that some of our immigrant parents that raised us, y'all know, they was talking mad cash about Black Americans. And I'm even speaking from the experience of my African family married into a Black American family. And even some of those Black Americans kind of started having that us and them mentality, where I remember having internalized racism growing up because of this mindset. This is a conversation that really needs to be had. So I would, if you guys are willing, like for you guys to put questions and topics down in the comments so that we can start this conversation about the diaspora wars and also about the mentality of the us and them between Caribbeans, Caribbean Black people, African Black people, and African American Black Americans. Let's talk about it. It's time.
American people, because the Caribbeans and the Africans, I don't see them standing up with us either.
Hello everyone, I wanted to respond on the podcast that I stitched. So the brother had asked his sister, when it came to a race wars, what who would fight for Black people no matter the ethnicity. So she stated that it would be African Americans or Black Americans who would fight. However, when it comes to Africans, Afro-Caribbeans or any other Afro-descendant person, they would not fight because of the negative depiction that some Africans and other Afro-descendant people have towards African American people. I understand her points. However, I'm going to have to refute her points because when it comes to this African diasporan wars, it is not one-sided. It comes from all angles. There are African Americans who have negative depictions about Afro-Caribbeans as well as Africans who have negative depictions about Afro-Caribbeans and African Americans. Likewise, Afro-Caribbeans or any other Afro-descendant person have negative depictions about Africans and African Americans. And this thing stems from slavery, colonialism, different environments, misinformation from the media, as well as the education system. Africa has been seen as the dark continent, the land of Tarzan, poverty, primitive people, when you watch TV and even through education. On the other hand, when you're going to the diaspora, there are negative depictions about African Americans as lazy, on welfare, etc., etc. And they do that so that other black people outside of the United States could have this negative thinking toward African Americans. And also, there are people who think negatively toward Afro-Caribbeans and other Afro-descendant person throughout Latin America and any other place. But when you think about it, this all stems from white supremacy, and this is a divide and conquer tactic to not bring black people together. Regardless, I come from a household where we had a mindset, despite your ethnicity, we're all black people. It didn't matter if you're Liberian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, Haitian, Bajan, Trini, Bahamian, Panamanian, Puerto Rican, Dominican. We are all black people, and we all connect back to the motherland. We may have different tree branches, however, we share the same roots of the tree, which is Mama Africa. In a way that I help to bridge the gap between Africans and Afro-descendant person, I wrote and published a book back in 2017 called Hidden Commonalities, identifying the cultural similarities among Africans and African descendants. This book is available at www.saycarry.com, as well as major booksellers such as Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good weekend.
Black American people, because the Caribbeans and the Africans, I don't see them standing up with us either.
See, this is why I say it's highly important for African Americans to know Caribbean history. This young lady went on the internet, on TikTok, and started to say if there's a race war, that Caribbean people won't help African Americans. If she would have known Caribbean history or American history, she would have known that we already done this several times throughout history. Not only 1824 with the Haitian president Boyer, 1826 when Dominicans actually authorized the city called Samaná, where African Americans have lived successfully in a town called Samaná in the Dominican Republic for over 200 years. In the 1850s in the United States, and other time periods as well. So this is the importance of knowing your history and understanding what has happened historically.
It's mad Caribbeans and African people that think that they better than black Americans as it is.
Okay, first of all, she talked about the diaspora and wars, and that's mostly about rice and food and who has the best food. So that's not really a relevant topic. But the topic I'm trying to hit on is that most Africans think they're better than African Americans. That narrative. We keep pushing this narrative, and I think it's very divisive, and it could cause a lot of problems in the future, right? One of the reasons this argument is even happening in the first place might be because of financial status and financial differences. The average African coming to America is already educated in their home country, right? So usually they come here already educated from their home country. They come here to go to university again and do all that stuff again. Now it's easier because they're already prior educated, and they come here, get educated again, and they get better jobs. So they get higher paying jobs, which basically puts them at a higher social status. So I would understand why some people would think, oh, Africans think they're better than African Americans. Maybe because of the way they act, since they have more money. And this is fact. Nigerians are the most educated immigrants in the United States. This is fact. So basically the correlation is that they make more money because they're more educated. Africans and Caribbeans are here in the United States for what? They're here for money. So now you see why in a race war, the African is going to be like, oh, I'm only here for money. I'm not here to fight any race wars. I'm here to get my bag. My next point will be social reason. Coming to the United States myself, I was worried I was going to be bullied by the white kids, but that's the problem. I wasn't bullied by the white kids. I was bullied by the African American kids. You know, I've been called it all. I've been called African booty scratcher, fucking everything. Literally every word's in the books. Kunta Kunte, fucking slave. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I got bullied so bad. I just stayed with my freaking African friend groups, like my Nigerian friend groups. That's all I would stay with. I mean, I've had African American kids say, "Oh, you're not one of us," blah blah blah, which I understand. I wouldn't really get too mad at that. And you can ask any other African kids, same experience all the time. And now this example will be about my parents. My parents at their job, they work fine with everybody except the African Americans because they also get bullied by them. My mom has gotten so many disrespectful comments from African American workers, co-workers, my dad also, and this has become a big problem. Now you see why the average African will be like, "Hey, stay away from those African Americans," because they tend to get bullied a lot. And again, you can ask any Africans this. This is not just my opinion or my freaking experiences. It happens very, very often. So it creates like this cycle where it's like, I hate you because I think you hate me. So I hate you because of that. And the cycle is kind of infinity. We both hate each other now. And it's just a lot of tension. And my third reason for this whole crap that's going on and this whole hatred between Africans and African American would be trauma and false information. If you look back to like old African American movies or, Black American movies, if someone calls someone else an African, that's an insult. That's a way to bully somebody else. So being African is like really bad. Nobody wants to be African. So when the Africans get here and they get bullied by the African Americans react because the Africans don't like them. And it's just this whole mess that's absolutely unnecessary. If you look at people like Burna Boy, that's trying to like create this bridge, he gets a lot of problems because of that. Because now they're saying, "Oh, he's stealing their culture and blah blah blah." One thing I've noticed about African Americans is that they think it's them versus the world, and I think this is due to trauma. We need you to understand that we love you, African people love you, and we want to embrace every single Caribbean and British Africans and Africans, the native Africans of the African land. Because one thing I want to say is that if you're Black, you're African. Black is African. You have no choice. And you can't do it alone. The African people need to come together. There's no, African American people are separate from everybody else, or Caribbean people are separate, or African people are separate. We're all in this fight together. And if we can't come together and fight this fight, there's no winning. We're still going to be at the bottom forever. So keep the diaspora wars about who has the best rice, not who has the best race. Because Black race is that's the only race. There's only one Black race. That's it. I hope I've been able to break down this whole thing. I've been talking too much. Bye.
You believe would be there to help Black people in a race war.
You
want to be real? I don't even think we would help each other. I think some people would be so afraid, so scared, that they would rather still try to take sides with them Euros than actually fight with our people. Now, I'm saying that all across the globe. I think we are afraid to separate from them, to even combat them. By them, y'all know who I mean. But the point I'm making is, I don't think we got the guts to unite and stand together. I can be wrong, I could be wrong, but prove it. And if you can't prove it, stop having these pointless conversations.
What other race/ethnicities do you believe?
Regardless of where you come from, there are biases. So let's put that as a standard in getting to this conversation. As a Black person and an African myself, living abroad, this is my opinion regarding this conversation, because I've heard it a couple of times. I've seen a couple of podcasts of Black Americans outrightly saying how much Africans, Caribbeans feel like they're better than them and say a lot of things about them. I also feel the same way you feel that they say things about you. I'm sure you guys sit down there and say things about African, which are biases, and you need to check that out of the door. But at the same time, somebody having an opinion about you doesn't mean that they typically do not like you. And I've seen this conversation time and time again. The conversations were about Black American is not a race. Black American, you're Black. So I, as an African, I am black. Okay, so we are all kind of like on the same set. We might not face exactly the same challenges, but come on now, we are related in so many ways. Even the challenges we face, there is so much in common that we face when it comes to these challenges. So when we continuously, because this is a new conversation that have come up, and I've seen a couple of blogs talk about it, and it has trended, and it's become a conversation that we are continuously pulling. And when it continuously, it's just like trying to start a war. If we continue driving at this kind of conversation, we are bringing in more issues where there is none at the table. You're bringing more things that people think about in their houses, in their mind, which are not sometimes reality because of their own biases. You're not being realistic, because I still reiterate and say you have your biases and the things that you think about Africans. You have your biases and the things that you think about Caribbeans, Indians. We say these things all the time. I remember the other day, people were talking about like having Asian friends and how crazy it is. It does not mean that there are people, black people, different people, or even Asians, that Asian group of friends who are not happy, who did not have a fun time. Those are biases, and sometimes we need to check it. And it doesn't mean that because of that conversation or that trend, they hate. Because now for me, this is a conversation that we need to stop it already. It is redundant. It is becoming too much. We have sat on this app. There's so many trends that I've had. There's so many things that we see about Caribbeans, about Africans, about white people, about different people in ethnicity. We say that all the time, and people don't conclude and say they hate us. So you cannot just typically feel like because people check your biases sometimes, or they point out things that they don't particularly like, you generalize and say, oh my god, they hate us, they don't like us. And why are you separating yourself when you say black people? Why is there like that part of it? It doesn't make sense. I just feel like sometimes we should learn how to check things. This is why I'm going to go back before I conclude and talk about the trend that people were talking about. Black people, different people, even some Asians talk about being friends with other Asians. Please. There are people who have amazing friendship. I know that people were talking about the negative part and people jump on it and it was like a whole thing. There are still people who are in those friends group that they have learned a lot of things, had amazing conversations. And sometimes I want us to just have a balanced conversation when it comes to things like this, because this is what happened. One person run with it, then two people start, because this thing started like a joke. And I remember how the first video spiraled, and then more people are talking about it, and then it becomes a thing of Africans do not like me, Caribbeans do not like. Come on, really? Anyway, drop your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, okay? And if you think you don't have biases, think again.
Because the Caribbeans and the Africans, I don't see them standing up with us either.
Excuse the
What she says is so funny, but it's not true. Guys, Black Americans, you need to get out of your mindset that people abroad, whether they're black or white, they're talking about you and that they see you as something less than. Because I will tell you, it's not true. It's actually the total opposite. People abroad think of Black Americans as like the coolest black people on earth. You also have to understand that this type of segregation that has happened in the United States has not happened in a lot of other countries around the world. Yes, there is colorism and racism outside of this country, but not as blatant as it is in the United States. So again, a lot of people outside of the United States think of Black Americans as like the greatest thing on earth. Hello, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Jay-Z. Like Black American representation in the media abroad is not automatically derogatory or demeaning. It's not how they see you outside of this country. The problem is when immigrants come into this country, they don't get the best treatment from the people that they look up to. We come to this country from our country where black is not an anomaly. Being black or being associated with somebody that's black is not something weird to us. What is weird is the treatment that we get from the black people in this country, a lot of times based on our appearance, based on our accent. Hell, based on the fact that a lot of us come into this country and we don't speak English. So when we go through these things in this country, that's when we build the wall. That's when we separate ourselves from some Black people. Because this is not everyone, and this is not all Black people of United States that do this. But I will tell you that a lot of us have gone through that experience. My first day of school in Harlem, it was not pretty. And I will tell you some of the things that we go through. We get teased. We get our hair pulled. We get food thrown at us. We get people trying to trip us. We get pushed. And when we try to fight back, you know what happens? People try to jump us. So we have no choice but to fight back and be able to survive in this environment. But that doesn't mean that people abroad are automatically thinking of Black Americans in a negative way. The problem is the experiences that we go through when we are in this country. And for the most part, depending on the state that you go to, those experiences or those bad experiences are with Black Americans. I will tell you, Africans get teased. Caribbeans get teased. Central, South Americans get teased. And this is where people or outsiders want the clear separation. So what needs to happen, if you want, is work with your community if you want the support. But again, that's not everyone that goes through these experiences. But yeah, a lot of us do.
It's mad Caribbeans and African people that think that they better than Black Americans. As
It's surprising to me that most Black Americans think that Africans and Caribbeans have a thing against them. I don't think Africans and Caribbeans that come from countries dominated by Black people would move to America and feel like they just hate the other Black people over there. Africans move to America and then they are ridiculed, they are made fun of, they are called African booty scratchers. They are told that they smell weird because of their cultural foods and things that they eat at home that stick to them when they come to school. Then you tell them they smell weird. You, Black Americans, don't accept them to begin with. You don't accept them, and then you turn around and say they don't like you. I'm sure most Africans don't have a thing against Black Americans who are sensible. In my opinion, there's a lot of Black Americans who could be normal and good, but they decide not to be. They decide to join gangs. They decide to, mess up their lives in the worst way possible. And they treat everyone else around them like they are their enemies, including themselves. They, Black Americans, don't trust themselves, their own people. They don't trust them. Yet you want other Black people from other places to trust you. Yeah, I don't think it works like that. Besides, the fact that you're there saying that you think Black Africans and Caribbeans wouldn't stand with you is laughable, because you're talking about a race war. A race war. Are you saying Africans and Caribbeans are not Black people? Why wouldn't Africans and Caribbeans want to fight for Black people if they are Black and the race war is against Black people? Or you think white people will magically exclude Africans and Caribbeans because they just hate you, Americans, Black Americans? No. The race war is against all Black people. The fact that some of you are ignorant enough to think that Black people means Black Americans doesn't make it true that the white people that you're fighting against exclude Africans and Caribbeans from their racism. They are all included. So for you to sit there from some deep-seated annoyance that you have with Black people and say that Africans and Caribbeans think they are better than Black Americans. I saw a comment on one of these stitches, and the person was like, for Africans to come to America and look down on Black Americans after Black Americans fought for them to be able to come over to America. That is very wrong. Africans were coming to America before the slave trade and during the slave trade as free men. There was There was slave trade, yes, but there were some Africans who could come to America as free men. Black Americans did not fight exclusively for black people from other places in the world to be able to come to America. There were Africans going to the UK, there were Africans going to America as free men, even during the slave trade. So that excuse that some Black Americans are given is very stupid. I would hope that one day you would sit down and find some peace in yourself, and then you would feel like Black people from across the world, Africans, Caribbeans, Black Americans, are one people fighting against one enemy. Because the division you are creating is internal. You hate yourself so much that you hate all other African people that come close to you. And then when you project your hatred onto them and they're like, wow, Black people hate us more than the white people. The Black people don't act like they are civilized enough. I'm sorry for my words. But yes, there's white people that even want to indulge in African culture more than you Black Americans living in America. So then where do you want the unity to come from? We're all fighting for peace, but the division is from you guys. You have it in your head. That's Africans and Caribbeans and whoever thinks they're better than you. But you saying that and always saying that there is something against you, there are systems against you and all that. Black people are Black people. The systems are against all Black people. The fact that you think Africans and Caribbeans think they are better than you is a problem. Because Africans mostly move into America and immigrating to America are not from better situations than you. They are from worse situations. They are from places where electricity is not that constant, water is not that constant, hygiene is not that good. A lot of things. People had to suffer throughout their lives to fight all their way to America. So when they get to America and they see that the people who they look like them, who they can associate with, are not fighting any harder for themselves. Nobody wants to stay stagnant in their bad situations. I want to be better. So if I move to a place where I think I can be better, but the people who look like me make fun of me, while they are not even trying to do better for themselves, they see it as everything is against them. Some people even feel like success and prosperity should fall into their hands. There's Black Americans striving out there. There's Black Americans who came from nothing, struggled like the rest of you, and they still made it because they had a focus in life. You should have it in your mind that Africans and Caribbeans don't have it easier than you. Most Africans and Caribbeans don't have it easier than you. You have it better. From the beginning, you had it better. But you fumbled your chances, and then you don't make it. That is why some of you think, yes, there are Black Americans who, when they become better, they don't have the group mentality of Black Americans anymore. You see them as more white than Black. Maybe that's the problem. But they are also seeing your behavior as a typical Black American as backwards. That's how I see it. So I'm sorry, but I don't think your thoughts is right.
Ethnicities do you believe would be there to help Black people?
To be honest, no one. Ain't nobody helping Black Americans. All we got is us. I don't care what they say. Nobody.
So this is all I got from this video and the stitches. And first of all, I'm going to start by saying that I think, it's time we put so many things aside, squash whatever that has been going on, and understand that we are the same. We are all from the same, we share the same thing, like everything. And we can do better, by coming together instead of looking for a way to tear ourselves down and all that. There has been lapses from both sites and all that. And you all know really what happened. Like one of the ladies said that, a lot has been said by the media, what the media projected and how they lied so much, like, about what is going on in Africa and what was also going on in America. Again, about the people that look like me, like how they do, how they react, how they act and all that. So it's been a lot of lies that has been told, and are we going to continue to dwell in those lies? No, we cannot. At least we have grown, we have understood some certain things. I mean, the media these days are also telling the truth, what has been going on. We also have been carrying it, we are saying it, we see it, and we see you all going through them, right? So we understand better, like most of the things they said were not true, right? And I keep saying this, we are not going to win if we keep looking for a way to stir up diaspora war and all that. The reality is that I see you as my brother, I see you as my cousin, I see you as a family. I don't see you as something different. Like, how do I even wake up to think like I am better? Like, how am I even better? In what way am I even better than you, or in what way? So in all, I am saying that it is time we come together and know that, because they actually know the power we have when we all come together. If all African countries, African Americans, if we all understand that we are from the same place, we share the same thing, and decide to come together and fight what is fighting us, trust me, we are a great force. So they truly know the power we hold together. That's why they are looking for a way to, make sure that the diaspora war continue and all that. And please let us not give chance to, for things like that. And you all can see that a lot of Africans, most especially, are also diving into the history, getting to know more about what happened and all that. And the new, we all are sharing it, broadcasting it, and also letting other people know that, man, the media has really been, they all lied to us. Yeah. All they have done is just to keep lying, and the rest of it. But then we already found the truth. Are we going to still dwell on what media told us? No, it is time to put all those aside and focus on what is facing us, because there is power out there. Yeah, power in unity. If we all decide to unite and focus more and look for a way to fight them back. Yeah. So for some people that come to say that I will not stop saying it. African Americans really did great for all the Africans that migrated and all that, because if it were not what their ancestors went through, what they suffered and still going through, I am sure that some of us, especially Africans, won't be benefiting from what they are benefiting from right now. I mean, it takes a lot of, the trauma is still there on them. So do not wake up and think that they are just going to open arms for everybody and all that. But then I think we should also know how to handle things, like try to understand that no matter what happens, some things happen by accident and the rest of it. This is where I am going to draw the curtain. And thank you so much for the support, and see you all in my next video. Bye for now.